Social discontent is building up in Haiti in the wake of a possible foreign intervention called by Prime Minister Ariel Henry. Venezuela's government intensified the recovery tasks after deadly landslides in Las Tejerias. President Nicolás Maduro Moros announced a series of measures to support the affected families and businesses. And the 5th International Forum of the Russian Energy Week, which is expected to be attended by President Vladimir Putin and Gazprom executives, kicks off in Moscow. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Researchers, media, and social activists in Haiti warned about the volatile situation developing in the Caribbean nation in anticipation of a foreign military intervention. Researchers noted that the overwhelming pressure on the streets and a growing unrest that is spreading uncontrollably throughout the country. The discontent with a possible foreign intervention expressed by opposition forces, the national demand for the resignation of Prime Minister Ariel Henry, and the anger over the lack of fuel and gangs violence are the conditions that cause the situation to reach unseen proportions. In Costa Rica, hospital centers are overcrowded due to an outbreak of a respiratory virus that has caused serious infections in children. In a recent report issued by the Ministry of Health, it was informed that during Monday, more than 80 children were admitted, most of them under 4 years old, and all of them with severe acute respiratory infections, of which 7 are under mechanical ventilation. In view of the situation, a week's recess was ordered in the school calendar so that public and private educational centers will remain closed from this Tuesday, October 11th, until Friday, October 14th, in order to cut the transmission that has strained the services of children's hospitals. The commissions of Colombia's Congress approved this Monday the extension of the Law 418, one of the essential elements to develop the Total Peace Project designed by President Gustavo Petro. Sources from the Colombian Congress explained that the project associated to the so-called Law of Public Order modifies, adds, and extends the previous text in search of a true commitment to total peace through human security and the state. One of the articles of the bill states that the peace processes and in each of its stages, the effective participation of women and civil society, the reparation and other rights of the victims will be guaranteed. On Tuesday, the president of Peru, Pedro Castillo, denounced the public prosecutor's office for carrying out new abusive and criminalizing actions. The Peruvian president denounced that the residence of his sister was raided this Tuesday by officials of the public prosecutor's office. In this situation, the Peruvian head of state held the public prosecutor's office responsible for the health of his mother, who was in the raided residence. In this context, the Attorney General, Patricia Benavides, presented before the Congress a constitutional complaint against President Castillo for alleged corruption crimes. The defense of Castillo has denounced that the actions of the Attorney General's office seeks to criminalize the president's family as part of a campaign to attack the national government and promote an impeachment process. And Brazil's presidential runoff election is 20 days away, 19 also. Candidate Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva warns that the current president, Jair Bolsonaro, seeks to destroy the institutions that guarantee democracy. The leader of the Workers' Party criticized Bolsonaro's proposal to increase the number of members of the Supreme Court because this would incorporate 5 new magistrates favorable to his administration. Lula da Silva's statements were made in a meeting with intellectuals, economists, and political leaders who used to be his opponents and today expressed their support. In the meeting, the group of intellectuals agreed to evaluate public policies on education and the reindustrialization of the country. On Tuesday, the Chilean Senate has approved accession to the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership Treaty, better known as the TPP-11. The bill only requires the signature of President Gabriel Boric to be enforced. However, it might still be challenged in the Constitutional Court. The independent Senator Karim Baki, before starting the discussion, made a reservation of constitutionality with respect to the project, denouncing that the judiciary was not consulted during the discussion. In 2019, the lower house had already approved the treaty, which was taken up again in September of this year by the Senate, as it was approved by a majority with all the opposition votes. In Uruguay, education unions maintain a 24-hour strike amidst the conflict with the Uruguayan government, which seeks to impose an educational reform affecting the sector. The measure was adopted by decision of the Secondary School Teachers Association, and it's supported by the National Federation of Secondary School Teachers. The strike is in rejection of what they consider an imposing attitude of the authorities on the educational reform promoted by the government of President Luis Lacalle. Teachers denounce that the National Administration of Public Education continues to violate democracy, denies freedom of expression, ignores collective negotiation, and violates the rights of the students. We'll take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro Moros leads the execution of the action plan to attend to the emergency in Las Tejerias in the state of Aragua as part of the consequences of the Hurricane Julia last October 8th. In this regard, the head of state informed that more than 3,000 security forces officers that make up the National Risk Management System continue to be deployed in the area of the disaster. He also announced the installation of a presidential command post in the town of Las Tejerias in order to personally monitor the search and rescue works, as well as the integral attention to the inhabitants. The Venezuelan head of state also gave details on the number of missing persons, while he explained the tasks of the presidential command post installed to mitigate the effects in the town of Las Tejerias.
56 missing. We are reaching almost 100 fetal victims of this tragedy, this natural disaster. And well, the government team working there in Tejerias, a presidential command post is installed. From that command post is working 24 hours a day.
Now we move on to other topics. On Wednesday, the 5th International Forum of the Russian Energy Week, which is expected to be attended by President Vladimir Putin and Gazprom executives, has started in Moscow amid great expectation. The event, which the Eurasian country holds annually, will be dedicated to the theme of energy in a multipolar world. The Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Energy and Trade of Turkey, Vietnam, Venezuela, Azerbaijan, Algeria, Hungary, Kazakhstan, Myanmar, Belarus, Syria, and others, as well as some 50 heads of diplomatic missions and more than 3,000 delegates from 70 countries attends the event, among other high-level representatives. Confirming the presence of the Russian head of state, Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson for the office, assured that Putin's speech for the opening day will be a particularly interesting one. The European Union's Energy Commissioner held a long-term strategic partnership with Algeria on Tuesday as the bloc turns to Africa's biggest gas exporter to fill a gap left by the Russian supplies. Kadri Simpson is the latest in a string of top European officials to visit Algeria in search of more natural gas, since Western sanctions hinder the delivery of Russian gas supplies to Europe. The bloc's hunt for gas has become ever more urgent as winter approaches, but experts have cast doubts over Algeria's ability to boost output in the short term. Algeria's energy minister, Mohamed Arbak, for his part, says his country is a trusted supplier that always honors its contractual obligations.
Russia, so far EU's biggest gas supplier, is irreversibly broken. We are turning to the EU's reliable suppliers to fill in this gap. And in this respect, we are offering Algeria a long-term strategic partnership.
Germany on Tuesday slammed Serbia's visa policy as contributed to a migrant surge in the European Union. Berlin called for the bloc to take coordinated action as crunch talks this week. The German government is opposed to Belgrade's visa-free travel regime for several countries whose citizens use Serbia as a springboard to enter the EU. Interior Minister Nancy Faeser said she and her EU counterparts will discuss the situation in Serbia and bolster deployment of Frontex at a meeting on Friday. On Tuesday, it was announced the coronation of His Majesty, the King Charles III. Charles III will be crowned in a solemn religious ceremony conducted by Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury. The ceremony will see His Majesty King Charles III crowned alongside the Queen Consort that will embrace the past but look to the modern world after the 70-year reign of the late Queen Elizabeth II, and it will take place at Westminster Abbey on Saturday, 6th of May 2023. Let's recall that after the death of the Queen Elizabeth II, calls for a change are growing amid the Commonwealth realm, in which some countries in the Caribbean have expressed interest in becoming a republic, where the royals have said they will not stand in its way. Still life is still alive. From prehistory to artificial intelligence, the Louvre is shaking up the art of presenting still life through a dynamic dialogue between our times and the history of the genre. The exhibition opens the 2022-2023 academic year at the Louvre Museum, which under the title Les Choses, the Things, proposes a journey through the universe of the still life. Through nearly 200 exhibits, Things traces the presence of objects in art from a multidisciplinary and reflective point of view. More than telling that story of a pictorial genre, the exhibition is a story about the history of art and civilization, comparing how different artists at different times looked at the objects that surrounded them. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Tunisian Navy announced the rescue of 194 migrants intercepted at sea while crossing the Mediterranean heading to Europe. According to Tuesday's announcement, the rescue involved 9 different operations during 2 days. Most asylum seekers are Tunisian and 76 come from sub-Saharan African countries, including 42 women and 8 children. This week, 8 bodies, probably Tunisians, who had been missing for a fortnight, were recovered at a sea off southeastern Tunisia, according to the local Red Crescent. According to official figures, more than 22,500 migrants have been intercepted off the Tunisian coast since the beginning of the year. Of this, almost 11,000 came from sub-Saharan Africa. On Tuesday, Tunisians have been hit with soaring food prices and shortages of basic staples in recent weeks, threatening to turn simmering discontent in the North African country. Government blames speculators, black market hoarders, and the conflict in Ukraine, but economic experts said the government's own budget crisis and its inability to negotiate a long-south loan from the International Monetary Fund have added to Tunisia's troubles. Inflation reached a record rate of 9.1%, the highest in 3 decades, according to the National Institute of Statistics. The government is currently negotiating a $2 billion to $4 billion loan with the IMF. A high-ranking Tunisian delegation went to Washington in hope of finalizing a deal.
Of course, we see that today there are elements of excessively dangerous politicizations of everything connected with nuclear activity. We very much hope that, thanks to your efforts, we will be able to reduce all rhetoric on this score and bring this area of activity and cooperation to a normal state, despite all the turbulences and all the complex processes that are taking place on the war stage.
Devastated families gathered this Tuesday for the cremation of their loved ones killed in a Thai nursery massacre that claimed 36 lives, including 24 children. The tragedy in the northeastern province of Non Boa Lampu stunned the nation, one of the worst mass killings in the country's history. Police officers carried the coffins outside in the dusky light, laying them on top of the specially built brick pyres decorated with white and black fabric. Sobbing families escorting the smallest of the coffins, placing portraits to flowers beside them. Other victims of the attack will be cremated at different temples in the area. A former police officer armed with a gun and a knife went on a rampage through the nursery on Thursday before killing his wife and his child and taking his own life. And a spacecraft that plowed into a small, harmless asteroid millions of miles away succeeded in shifting its orbit, NASA said on Tuesday in announcing the results of its Save the World test. The space agency attempted the first test of its kind 2 weeks ago to see if the future a killer rock could be nudged out of Earth's way. The DART spacecraft carved a crater into the asteroid Dimorphos on September 26, hurling debris out into space and creating a comet-like trail of dust and rubble stretching several thousand kilometers away. It took days of telescope observations from Chile and South Africa to determine how much the impact altered the path of the 160-meter asteroid around its companion, a much bigger space rock. Before the impact, the moonlet took 11 hours and 55 minutes to circle its parent asteroid. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.